Meantime, at least 2,000 deaths have been reported as Iranian protesters hope to overthrow the Islamic regime there, with the first execution of a protester reportedly planned for today. But President Trump is refusing to sit back and do nothing.
Well, there's a lot of help on the way and in different forms, including economic help from our standpoint, and we're not going to help Iran very much. And, we put Iran out of business with their nuclear capacity. And now, depending on what's actually happening, nobody's been able to give us accurate numbers about how many people they've killed.
Well, on that point,
it looks like it could be a pretty substantial number.
Joining us now is Hudson Institute senior fellow and former foreign policy advisor to Senator Tom Cotton, Aaron MacLean. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Here's a Truth Social post from President Trump that could foreshadow a whole lot. He wrote yesterday, Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions, save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stop. Help is on the way. Make Iran great again. What do you think he means by that, Aaron? Help is on the way.
Well, it's a pretty unambiguous statement that this president intends to do something about what's going on in the streets of Iran. Look at what he says in that message. There was this discussion over the course of the weekend that the Iranians were going to reach out to us, that there were going to be talks. He's clearly rejecting that. So he's rejected that. He's imposed these tariffs. He made this announcement yesterday. There's also the suggestion that Americans who are in Iran, I'm not sure what Americans are in Iran right now, this is evergreen advice, should probably leave the country. So the stage is set for some kind of intervention. There appears to be an ongoing debate within the administration over whether that intervention should be quote unquote kinetic, that is to say military action, or more non-kinetic actions that could still be taken by our military, but take the form, for example, of cyber attacks or further economic measures. The question that I'm asking myself right now this morning is where are we in the window of opportunity to really help these protesters? These protests have been underway for a while now. There's real brutality suppressing them at the moment, and the clock is very much ticking.
Yeah, you answered the when part of my question. I'm going to go back to that statement from the president. He said help is on the way. Help can mean a number of things, but then he really does emphasize a big price will be paid by the Islamic regime there. So what does big price mean, Aaron?
Well, there are certainly military options. There are regime targets. There are targets tied to the besieged, to the IRGC, to the various institutions of the Iranian state that are perpetrating this brutal oppression in the streets. So that would be one quite maximalist option. There's the remnants of the nuclear program itself. There's the Iranian missile program, which, if you think back to December when Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel visited the United States, the question of the Iranian missile program and its reconstitution was a major subject of discussion between the Prime Minister and President Trump. So there are targets aplenty beyond, obviously, economic targets and the sort of cyber options that you have that would ideally dismantle the ability of the regime security forces to do their day-to-day jobs. These are all options on the table. They have to compete with the brutal reality of what's unfolding on the streets right now. The numbers that I'm hearing anecdotally from a variety of sources suggest that the killings well surpass the round of killings back in 2019, which was already an extraordinarily high four-figure sum.
Yeah, and yesterday an Iranian official admitted that 2,000 people have been killed. That's the first time the Iranian government acknowledged that high of a number, which is staggering. And during Operation Midnight Hammer, Aaron, we learned that we could control Iranian airspace, and we learned it again in Venezuela, which is a country that relies on Iranian technology. So if the president does green light, say, for instance, a missile strike targeting Iranian leadership, what could the consequences and potential drawbacks of that be? Could we run the risk of emboldening Iranian hardliners that are left alive, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, who are true believers? How do we translate action that we take into what protesters want to see as a new form of government?
Well, I'm very concerned, as you can tell from my comments so far, about the risks of not succeeding. I think the clock really is ticking here, and time is of the essence. Some of these other risks impress me less. The regime hardliners, they seem pretty emboldened to me right now. Yeah. It's not totally clear to me how strikes are going to further embolden them. I'm also not impressed by the suggestion that strikes against the regime would somehow create a rally around the flag effect in Iran. This is a canard that opponents of intervention have offered for decades now about Iran. It hasn't proved true yet. It won't prove true this time. And then there's, of course, the further argument that we could end up entangled in the Middle East, to which my response is the United States is hopelessly entangled in the Middle East. The interests of this country in the Middle East matter, and the nature of the Iranian state and whether or not it pursues nuclear weapons and what it intends to do with its influence over energy resources in the region matters to us, and not everything is Iraq in 2003. Critics who offer that line of argument should find themselves another analogy.
Yeah. Iran knows that President Trump does not bluff. Just look at the June nuclear strike. So it really does beg the question, why do they appear to be going through with the planned execution today of protester Irfan Soltani and risking a military response from the president? Time will tell. Aaron MacLean, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.